The air in the mess hall was a thick, humid stew of noise and the cloying scent of canned green beans. It was the end of a grueling training day, and the recruits of Alpha Company were a ravenous, exhausted horde, packed shoulder to shoulder at the long, polished wooden tables. They ate with the single-minded focus of men who had been pushed to their physical and mental limits. Their only thought, a brief respite before the next round of hell began. Among them sat Amelia Amy Rourke, a figure who, on the surface, seemed to blend into the sea of buzzcut heads and tired, youthful faces. But if you looked closer, you'd see the subtle differences. While others slouched, she maintained a posture of effortless readiness. Her eyes, a sharp, intelligent green, weren't scanning the room with the frantic energy of a newcomer. They were observing, taking in details others missed. She ate her slop-like portion of meatloaf and mashed potatoes with an economical grace, using as few motions as possible. She was an anomaly whisper in a room full of shouts. This quiet competence had not gone unnoticed. In the pecking order of boot camp, it was often the loudest, most physically imposing recruits who rose to the top. And in this particular cycle, that title belonged to a thick-necked, barrel-chested recruit named Marcus Tank Harrison. Tank wasn't a bad guy. Not really. He was just a guy who had spent his life winning with brute force. And he was convinced the military was the ultimate playground for his natural talents. He saw the world in simple terms: strong and weak, predator and prey. Amy Rourke, with her slender frame and quiet disposition, had been relegated to the prey category in Tank's mind since day one. He'd watched her, and he'd seen her top the physical fitness tests with a silent efficiency that annoyed him more than if she had failed. He'd seen her outshoot him on the range, her small hands steady as she put 3 rounds in the 10 ring, while his own shots strayed. He'd seen her more than once give a quiet but sharp correction to other recruits on proper gear maintenance or land navigation, only to have them follow her advice without question. He couldn't stand it. He needed to put her in her place, to assert the natural order of things. He chose the mess hall for its audience. He wanted everyone to see it. Flanked by his 4 sycophantic frenza, motley crew of muscle and insecurity, Tank swaggered towards Amy's table. Their approach was like a small tidal wave, the conversation dying down in their wake. They stopped right in front of her, casting long shadows over her plate. "Well, look who it is," Tank began, his voice a low theatrical rumble that carried across the room. "Little Miss Perfect, all alone." Amy Rourke didn't look up from her plate. She simply continued to eat, a single potato chunk on her fork. "Keys, talking to you, Rourke," said a skinny, nervous-looking recruit named Miller, his voice cracking slightly. The quiet, almost deliberate way she ignored them only served to stoke their fire. Tank's smile tightened into a sneer. "Don't you know it's rude to ignore your superiors?" Amy finally looked up. Her green eyes were calm, but there was a stillness in them that was more unnerving than any fiery glare. She set her fork down on the tray with a soft click. "The only superior here is the man who can outrun me, outshoot me, and outthink me," she said, her voice surprisingly soft, a whisper that somehow cut through the mess hall's din. "I haven't met him yet." The words hung in the air, a challenge so audacious it almost seemed like a joke. A few recruits at nearby tables snickered nervously. Tank's face, already flushed with indignation, turned a deep crimson. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. "Listen, you little know-it-all," Tank growled, leaning closer, his massive hands splayed on the table. "I've seen how you do things. It's all textbook. You don't have an ounce of real guts in you. You're all talk and no fight. You need to learn some respect." "Respect," Amy repeated, her head cocked slightly. "Respect is earned, not demanded. You're demanding it." "That's it," Tank snarled, losing all pretense of a public shaming. He reached out and grabbed the collar of her uniform, pulling her slightly forward. His 4 friends moved in closer, forming a tight circle around the table. The crowd of recruits fell completely silent, a thick tension filling the air. This was going to be a beatdown, and everyone knew it. They were witnessing a rite of passage, the strong reasserting their dominance over the perceived weak. 30 seconds, Tank whispered into her ear, his breath hot and stale. "That's all it's gonna take. Then maybe you'll learn to keep your mouth shut." It was exactly what she had been waiting for. The moment his fingers closed on her collar, the transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. Amy's body went from relaxed stillness to coiled steel. The change was so fast that none of them, not even Tank, saw it coming. Her right hand, a blur of motion, shot up and grabbed his wrist, not with a grasp of panic, but with the precise, crushing grip of someone who knew exactly where to apply pressure. A jolt of pain shot through Tank's arm, and he involuntarily grunted, his grip on her uniform loosening. Her left hand followed, a lightning-quick strike to the side of his neck, just below the jawline, a spot known as the carotid triangle, too. It was a pressure point strike, not a hard hit, but perfectly placed. Tank's world tilted, a wave of dizziness washing over him as his muscles involuntarily spasmed. The grip on her collar went slack, and he stumbled back, his eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. The other 4 recruits, shocked for a half-second, then moved to swarm her. They were like a clumsy, uncoordinated pack of dogs. Miller lunged for her, but Amy was already moving. She dropped low, her body a fluid shape, and swept his legs out from under him. He went down with a hard thud, the air whooshing out of his lungs. As he fell, another recruit, a hulking kid named Simmons, threw a wild amateurish punch. Amy didn't block it. She parried it with her forearm, redirecting the momentum and stepping into the punch. Her shoulder dipped, and she used the energy from his swing to pivot and push him. Simmons, a man of large size but little balance, was sent spinning into another recruit, Garcia, and the 2 of them collapsed into a heap of arms and legs. That left just one, a skinny, fast recruit named Sanchez. He saw what she had done and tried to be clever, coming around behind her to grab her from the back. But Amy's awareness was total. She had felt his movement, had anticipated it before he even started. Without turning her head, she dropped to one knee, her leg extended, and hooked his ankle. Sanchez, running full tilt, tripped over her leg and face-planted onto the polished concrete floor, his tray of half-eaten food skittering across the room. The entire sequence, from the moment Tank laid a hand on her, had taken less than 30 seconds. The mess hall was silent, save for the gasps of the onlookers and the groans of the 5 recruits now scattered across the floor. Tank, still woozy, was clutching his neck. Miller was on his back, winded and stunned. Simmons and Garcia were untangling themselves, and Sanchez was pushing himself up, a smear of mashed potatoes on his cheek. The quiet of the mess hall was suddenly broken by the sharp, authoritative click of a shoe on the concrete floor. Everyone's heads snapped towards the entrance. Standing there, his face a mask of cold fury, was Chief Petty Officer Davis, the Alpha Company's head instructor. He was a man who looked like he was carved from granite, with a stare that could curdle milk. The room held its breath. Chief Davis didn't even look at the 5 recruits on the floor. Highest eyes went straight to Amy Rourke, who had returned to her seat and was calmly picking up her fork. "Rourke," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Report." Amy Rourke stood up, her posture ramrod straight. "Recruit Rourke reporting, Chief," she said, her voice clear and without a hint of tremor. "What in the ever-loving hell just happened here?" the chief asked, his gaze still fixed on her. The 5 recruits on the floor attempted to instigate a physical altercation. "Chief, I de-escalated the situation using minimum force," she replied, her tone factual and emotionless. The chief's lips twitched, as if fighting back a ghost of a smile. He finally looked at the 5 recruits, who were now struggling to stand. "Harrison, Miller, Siemens, Garcia, Sanchez," he roared. "Get over here, front and center." They scrambled to their feet, their faces a mixture of pain, embarrassment, and a dawning sense of dread. They stood before him, shoulders slumped, uniforms askew. "What were you boys thinking?" Chief Davis demanded, his voice dropping back to a lethal whisper. "Did you think you were being tough? Did you think you were proving something?" He shook his head, a gesture of profound disappointment. "You picked the wrong person. You picked the one person in this entire boot camp that you should have stayed miles away from." He turned back to Amy, his expression softening slightly. "Recruit Rourke, with me." He then addressed the entire mess hall, his voice booming once more. "The rest of you, you listen to me. This isn't high school. There are no bullies, and there are no easy targets. And some of the people you see around you, they aren't what you think they are. The person you just saw is an example of that." He motioned for Amy to follow him, and the 2 of them walked out of the mess hall, leaving the stunned recruits in their wake. They stopped in a deserted hallway outside the mess hall, the sounds of the meal fading behind a thick metal door. "Rourke, what are you doing here?" the chief asked her, his tone now one of a colleague, not an instructor. Amy Rourke's face relaxed. The stoic, unreadable mask she wore for the recruits fell away, revealing a tired, seasoned woman. "Chief, my cover is blown. I was just trying to observe the social dynamics of this cycle, as per the commander's request." The chief leaned against the wall, shaking his head. "Observation. You think what you just did was observation?" "They gave me no choice, Chief. I gave them every opportunity to back down." He chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. "I believe you, Prush. But you know what this means, don't you? The commander wanted you to blend in. The quiet, little recruit who surprisingly excels at everything. Now they all know. The game is up." "I'll adapt," she said simply. "You always do," he replied, a touch of admiration in his voice. He ran a hand over his face. "Well, I suppose the cat's out of the bag. Might as well tell them the truth. The entire company is going to hear about this anyway. I'll make sure the official report is comprehensive." He opened the mess hall door just enough to poke his head in, his voice ringing out again. "Recruits, listen up. What you just witnessed was a prime example of why you should never make assumptions. And for those of you on the floor, you just got a lesson from a woman who has forgotten more about combat than you will ever learn." He stepped back out into the hallway, closing the door behind him. "I'm taking you all to the briefing room," he said to Amy. "The rest of them are going to be scrubbing latrines until sunrise. All 5 of them. It's an easy punishment for what they just did. Now, let me tell you who Amy Rourke is, so you understand your place in this world." He led her back towards the main briefing room, the long, quiet walk giving him time to gather his thoughts. "Amelia Rourke is not a recruit," he began, his voice taking on a formal tone. "She is a lieutenant junior grade in the United States Navy, and she isn't just in the Navy. She's a Navy SEAL. She's been a SEAL for 7 years. In that time, she's been on more missions than most of you have had hot meals. She's operated in some of the most hostile environments on the planet. Her unit, SEAL Team 6, isn't something you read about in books, it's a living legend. You tried to bully a legend, you idiots." The chief's voice was full of a mixture of awe and anger. "She's a master of hand-to-hand combat. She's a sniper, she's a demolitions expert. She's an intelligence gatherer. She's multilingual. She's not just a SEAL. She's a decorated SEAL. She has a silver star for single-handedly extracting a captured operative from an enemy stronghold. She has 2 bronze stars with V for valor. She's not here to be a grunt with the rest of you. She's here on a special assignment, evaluating the effectiveness of our current training methods and the psychological resilience of new recruits. She was supposed to be a fly on the wall, a silent observer." He paused, a look of profound respect on his face. "And you, Tank, with your chest thumping and your big talk, you couldn't even hold your own for 30 seconds against her. She didn't even break a sweat. Do you understand what that means? It means you have no idea what you're dealing with. It means you're still a child playing in the sandbox, and she is a warrior who has seen true hell and come back to tell the tale." He continued, the words now directed at the silent, humbled recruits, who had gathered in the briefing room. "The point is, this isn't about strength. This isn't about who can lift the most weight, or who has the biggest mouth. This is about discipline. It's about skill. It's about courage and intelligence. And you, all of you, need to learn that lesson. You need to learn that the most dangerous person in the room is often the quietest, the one who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone." He looked at Amy, who was standing in front of the room, her face now a stoic mask again. "Lieutenant Rourke, you are relieved of your assignment to observe this company. Your new assignment is to serve as a combat instructor for the next 3 weeks. I want you to teach these recruits a lesson they will never forget. I want you to push them harder than they have ever been pushed. And I want you to show them what a real warrior looks like." He turned back to the recruits. "From this day forward, you will address her as Lieutenant Rourke, and you will do whatever she tells you to do. You will do it without question, and you will do it with respect. Because if you don't, you will learn the hard way that a 30-second lesson can last a lifetime." The mess hall was a different place the next morning. A tense, quiet reverence had replaced the rowdy, boisterous energy of the previous day. The 5 humbled recruits, faces pale and eyes downcast, were nowhere to be seen. They were, as promised, scrubbing latrines. The rest of the recruits, however, were wide-eyed. They ate their breakfasts in silence, stealing nervous glances at the table where Amy Rourke now sat alone, no longer a quiet, unassuming recruit, but a fearsome, legendary figure in their midst. The whispered rumors of the mess hall incident spread like wildfire through the entire base. Story grew in the retelling, the 30-second takedown becoming a mythical, almost superhuman feat. Amy Rourke, the quiet recruit, was now a specter of raw, focused power, a living legend walking among them. She had taught them all a lesson, not about physical superiority, but about the profound danger of underestimating a person based on their appearance. She was the one who had truly earned their respect, not with shouts and swagger, but with a swift, decisive moment of truth. And for the rest of their time in boot camp, they never forgot it. The mess hall, once a place of raucous camaraderie, was now a place of silent respect. A solemn reminder of the day 5 recruits learned that the quietest person at the table can be the most dangerous.